So welcome to this final class on connection, where the theme is oneness. So ultimately, yoga is about a inner and outer connection that is transcendental and unbounded. And I'm just going to mention that briefly so that we can kind of park that and push that to one side, because it's not really the reason that most people do yoga. So as I've spoken about before, yoga is a fantastic way of keeping yourself healthy, reducing your stress, bringing the body and mind into balance, and really feeling connected with yourself in order to live a more skillful life and be happier yourself, and also create more happiness in the people that you encounter. But traditionally, for the very dedicated yogis on a kind of 100% 365 spiritual path, the end point was a oneness, which they defined as samadhi, or the superconscious state, where they've really lost their sense of ego and individual need and individual identity, and merged with something far greater. So if any of you experience that, particularly in my class, do let me know by email. But it's not particularly within the aspiration of this setting, although I'm sure some of you who have a seated practice will have experienced very deep and profound states of stillness, and everybody can access that level of oneness. So just going into oneness in a slightly deeper sense, and no surprise that we're really using the breath again. And tonight, I hope that I can just lead you into a breath practice, which you could take on and do in your own time as well, which is going to explore the subtlety of the breath. And through the subtlety of the breath, we realize more subtle connections between the body and the mind, and may experience an even greater sense of connection and oneness within ourselves. So if you'd like to just make yourself really comfortable, whether you're in the chair or on the mat, allow the spine to be upright and feel really comfortable in your posture. And if you're happy closing the eyes, or just have a soft downcast gaze to the floor in front of you. And take a moment to bring all of your attention into this moment, noticing all the sensations in your physical body, acknowledging everything that's going on in your body right now, today, this week, but also any longer term conditions or anything that you are looking after. Just making a little resolution, as we always do, to nourish and nurture ourselves, to listen to our bodies, listen to our breath, so that we are supporting our health and not doing anything that might worsen anything that we have going on. And then begin to notice your breath. And breathing in and out through the nose, unless the nose is blocked. And it's really quite tricky to do very subtle breathing in and out through the mouth. So if you do have a blocked nose tonight, then you can probably explore this technique in a few days when your nose is clearer. So breathing in and out through the nose, and we're really going to have a go at refining the in-breath and the out-breath. So as you breathe in, notice the sensation in the nose, the coolness of the air entering the body. And as you exhale, notice the warmth of the out-breath, as it exits the body through the nostrils, the air having been warmed by your body, by your lungs. And follow the pathway of the breath a little bit more now. It enters through the nostrils. Notice the sensation where the breath touches the back of the throat, moves down, and enters the windpipe, the trachea at the back of the throat. And each time you exhale, that flow going into reverse, air moving out of the windpipe, through the back of the throat and out through the nostrils. And then imagine that pathway of breath reaching the end of the windpipe and branching off either into your left lung, which is a little smaller than the right, or the right lung. And feel your body making space for that breath. We're just doing really easy breathing. So there's not going to be a great big lifting of the rib cage as we breathe in and a big sinking in as we breathe out. It's going to be more subtle than that, but have that sensation of the breath coming into both lungs and moving on the in-breath all the way down to the base of the lungs. And as you exhale, that breath moving out from the base of the lungs, up and out through the nostrils. And what we're going to really try to do in this breath is connect to the diaphragm here at the base of the lungs, the dome shape muscle that separates the thorax above from the abdomen below. It tucks up underneath the floating ribs. It's a very soft and movable structure. And really feeling that you're allowing the diaphragm to move up and down as you breathe in and breathe out. So keeping quite a lot of softness in the abdomen. And this week we're really going for not that very full breath, but just a complete breath. The kind of breath that we need. The kind of breath that feels refined and flowing and slow. And then we're all going to find the version of this breath that is right for us tonight. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to allow the pace of the breath to become slower and slower until you really feel that you hit a sweet spot, a rhythm of breath that is deeply nourishing and deeply calming, and yet doesn't leave you feeling that you are short of breath. So what you can do is just with each inhale and exhale, just slightly reduce the quantity of breath. You can really slow it down, make it more and more subtle. Still breathing in to the base of the lungs and out from the base of the lungs. The kind of breath that if somebody was sitting next to you, they would find it really difficult to know whether you were breathing in or breathing out. Your breath has become this subtle, refined tool of transformation. And just keep going for a few more breaths. Start to feel like you want to breathe more deeply, then allow that to happen. That just might mean you've dialed back your breath a little too far. So just bring it up a little bit, slightly increase the depth of breath. Otherwise, just maintain it at this lovely refined rhythm that you've found that works for you. And in the next few breaths, we will draw this initial breathing practice to a close. But use these last few breaths to try to step back from your own practice to witness what you are sensing in your body and in your mind as you carry out this very slow, refined rhythm of breathing. And then at the end of the next exhale, just blink open the eyes. I've been reading a book recently about yogic breathing, and I was very interested to see that the person writing the book had a similar experience to me. Whereas when I started out in yoga, I really tried everything, and I tried some tremendously crazy breathing practices, which involved a lot of pumping the muscles in and out and moving the rib cage up and down and doing all sorts of vigorous things which were meant to have these amazing effects, and they never actually did. And it was only years later that my own practice taught me that the subtle, deep, slow breathing was the most transformational for me, at least. So maybe for others, different breathing practices would work better, but I think this is a very accessible way of experiencing something very deep and very profound in our practice. So let's combine that subtle, refined breath with a little bit of movement, some ones you're becoming very familiar with now. So breathing in, really relaxing the shoulders and extending until your in-breath completes, and then closing, bringing the palms together as your exhale completes. And we've asserted through our practice the primacy of the breath. And we continue to do that as we move on to postures and physical stretches. So this reminds us the body is following the breath. The arms follow the breath, not the breath following the arms. And one more. And then release the arms away from you, palms up, and float the arms up as you breathe in, just paying attention to the shoulders. As soon as you feel the shoulders coming up, just drop them down, find a comfortable height for you. And again, let the arms follow the breath, using the hand movements, as we've said in previous classes, just to define the turning point, the moment of pause between inhale and exhale. And often when we're exploring a theme like connection and oneness, it is in the moments when the breath naturally suspends itself, even if only for a second or less, that we have an experience of a deeper sense of connection and a deeper sense of stillness than before. At the end of your next exhale, let the arms hang, give them a little shake. Try to imagine the arms are heavy, that they're drawing the shoulders away from the ears, and the shoulder blades are just tracking back a little bit. And again, it's a very subtle movement. It's not kind of Sergeant Major back and down and hold it. It's a natural drawing back and a natural release in gravity while maintaining this upward line of stretch and lengthening through the center of the body and through the crown of the head. With the arms hanging, we're going to take the shoulders forwards and up as we breathe in, and back and down as we breathe out. And then again, let the arms have a little hang and shake. Turn the palms out, bring the fingertips to the tops of the shoulders. This is a practice I find very hard to leave off any lesson plan at the moment, just because it's so effective at mobilizing all aspects of the shoulder joint and the shoulder girdle. And we can also really feel as we do this one how successful we've been so far in releasing tension in the shoulders and noticing any limitations to our range of movement here, which is really, really common. And then release the arms again, let them hang. And then we're going to inhale and exhale in and out for forward bend. So we'll breathe into our cactus arms. And then we'll breathe out, bring the palms onto the thighs and really extend away from the hips, tucking the chin in last of all and letting the head hang at the end of the exhale. And then as you breathe in, just bring the head back to neutral. Use the hands if you want to, or use your back muscles to come all the way up. That would make it a little bit stronger. And exhale. I seem to have picked the creakiest chair in my house, but never mind. So just keep going for a couple more breaths. The main thing we want here is still that feeling of uninhibited flow and ease in the breath, and the length of the breath to help us complete these movements in a really unhurried way. And then the next time you fold forwards, you're just going to stay forwards. If you can get a little bit deeper by separating the feet a little bit wider, feel free to do that. And if resting the hands on the thighs is inhibiting for you, you can always let the arms hang and find yourself in an appropriate position. Make sure you let the head completely go, hanging forward, so the weight of the head is stretching out the back of the neck. And if you do some really micro movements of the head, just tiny little rocking from side to side while it's hanging forward, just to help the neck release and maximize the space that you are experiencing there. Very nice. And then coming out, bring the head back up to neutral, bring the hands up if you need to. We're just breathing in, coming all the way up. And breathing out, release the arms back and down, and either stretching back or holding the sides of the chair, or just reaching back to the mat behind you if you are sitting cross-legged. Draw the shoulders back and take the upper back into a back bend. So nothing in the neck, keep the chin tucked in. Not too much in the lower back, but a real feeling of space of this part of the chest opening like a flower and a feeling of stretch through the muscles and tissue at the front of the upper chest there, the pectoralis muscles, major and minor. And a feeling at the back of the body that the shoulder blades are moving towards each other or coming down, and the spine in between those shoulder blades is going deeper and deeper into the body as you release into this upper back bend. And you're going to get a little more release on the exhale and just holding position on the inhale. Lovely. And then on the next exhale, release yourself back to neutral. If you are coming down onto the mat, feel free to come down onto the mat or stay in the chair. So if you're lying on the mat, hug the knees in over the chest and rock yourself from side to side, either holding the shins or the back of the thighs. And if you're working in a chair, use the arms to support the upper body, and just taking a gentle rock from side to side. And those lying on the mat, take a moment to come back to center when you've rocked a few times from side to side. And then as you breathe in, drawing the thighs in a little bit closer to the body. And if you want to, and if you can keep the back of the neck long, lifting the head towards the space between the knees, inhaling, head down, exhaling, coming in. Remember, you don't have to lift the head. That can be quite tricky. If you've got any neck issues, you can just do the leg drawing in. Make sure you're supporting the back of the head also with a blanket. For those in the chair, just coming into a similar position of coming further over the thighs and exhaling, folding forward, and inhaling, just coming up slightly. So we have the same sensation of back release and release in the abdomen as well. Okay, so we're going to come into a little bit of stretching the body. So for those on the mat, you can either work in semi-supine or you can work with the legs straight, which is a little bit stronger, and breathing in, coming into a full body stretch, spreading the fingers and the toes, and breathing out, coming back, and a moment of softness for the next inhale. And again, really following the breath. And if you're in a chair, you can just do the arms, or if you want to work a little more strongly, you can stretch out one leg. And this is actually the chair version of downward dog, but we're thinking of it more as a lengthening practice at this point in the class. And then the next time you come into the stretch, we're just going to hold that. So if you're lying on the mat, you can hold it for 3 breaths. Just hold it for 1 or 2 if you're in a chair. It's more tiring to hold the arms up in the air. And then when you've completed 3 inhales, take a long exhale and take 3 breaths in the softness and release position. Lovely. We'll move on to a little bit of hip opening now. So those on the mat, one hand on each knee and circling wide, breathing in for half a circle and breathing out as the knees come together and the arms straighten. So if we're maintaining that slow, very refined breath, this can be quite a slow experience of circling into the hips. And we're going to do 4 or 5 in one direction and 4 or 5 in the other direction. And those of you in a chair are probably quite used to this version of the same hip opener. Just working one leg at a time. So around about 3 in each direction on each leg. And then our next practice is going to involve using a belt. And I'm just looking around for mine, which I know I had earlier. No, I'm not seeing it. I will use an imaginary belt. You're all very familiar with this anyway. So we'll begin with the hamstring. So just bring the knee in over the chest if you're on the mat and take the belt around the foot, and then use the belt to draw the knee in on inhale. And as you exhale, begin to extend into the space and length. So this stretch in particular, and when we come into the held version of it, is going to be really, really strongly connected to the very subtle breath that we did. So I'm just inviting you to play with that. It's at the time when we're trying to lengthen muscles that might be a little bit tighter than the average in our body, that our mind can get pulled into focusing on the stretch, the physicality of it too much, and lose the connection to the breath. So we're just going to leave the sensation of the stretch, put that to one side, and really focus on using the subtlety of the breath, particularly the subtlety of that refined exhale, to try to experience this sort of movement into space through that right leg. So exactly the same if you're in a chair as usual, extending into that length, breathing in, coming out. So the next time you exhale, we're going to hold that stretch. And again, this is one we've been doing a lot in recent classes with a slightly different focus each time. So this time, keep with that very refined breath. And it's really important to find the correct version of this static stretch for you. If it's too much, if you're trying to do too much stretch in that leg, the physicality will subsume the breath. So just backing out a little bit, and that will be more effective in creating the space. Exhaling all the way down the back of that right leg, inhaling, holding position, feeling the connection to the earth through the back and the back of the pelvis. Similarly in the chair, just holding that stretch, maybe for not as long, but the belt will take a lot of the weight of the leg for you. So 1 or 2 more breaths still on that right leg. And then release from the stretch. Take the right leg down. If you're in the chair, just sitting quietly, noticing the sensations in the body. If you're lying down, stretch out the legs and take a moment or 2 at rest. Notice what you feel in your body, what you feel in that right leg compared to the left leg. Just notice how able you were at maintaining that very subtle flow of mindful breath as you practice. Much more challenging to do that when we're in a challenging stretch. Lovely. So moving on to the left leg, taking the belt round the left leg and working in exactly the same way. Inhale, knee in, exhale, coming into the stretch. And doing exactly the same from a seated position. And just keep going with that movement, but making the breath the most important thing. And at the end of the next exhale, just bringing that left leg into its static position. And with the leg not moving now, you can really deepen that connection to the breath. Breathing up and down the leg, exhaling from the hip to the heel, experiencing the release, the softening of that very refined, subtle breath. Inhaling, just drawing the breath down the leg, rooting yourself to the chair or to the mat. We make every practice that we do breath-led. We make every practice in our yoga practice contribute to this overall aim of experiencing a knitting together, a drawing together of threads of the mind, of disparate sensations in the body into one experience. So that oneness is a very real theme, a very living theme in every practice that we do, not just a class focusing on that theme. And then on your next inhale, releasing the left leg. And if you're lying on the mat, taking the foot down, stretching the leg, taking a few breaths of rest, or just sitting comfortably in the chair. Notice how you feel. Notice the body. Notice the breath. And what I'd like you to do now is just take those sensations and that experience of refined breath and movement into something a little bit more flowing, which is the cross crawl that, again, we've done now and then through this run of classes. So breathing in, the right arm is coming up, the left knee is coming in, and still breathing in, coming into a stretch for both arm and leg. And breathing out, returning to starting position. Left arm and right legs are always opposite sides of the body, exactly the same if you are working from a chair, because it's all about the breath. You're going to fit the movement to the breath. You're not going to run out of breath before you've completed the movement, because the breath is breathing the body in and out of this position. Find just sufficient breath to make this movement feel completely natural, integrated, not over breathing, not under breathing, not experiencing any unevenness in the breath, simply a sense of flow in the body and the breath, and the two absolutely joined together. And then the next time you do the left arm and the right leg, make that the last one, and either leaning forward over the knees if you're in a chair, or hugging the knees in to the body if you're on the mat, and taking a little rock from side to side to release the body back into softness after that practice. So we're going to move on now to a little bit of subtle core strengthening. And the idea here is that the activation of the core muscles supports posture, supports a steadiness and a stillness in what we experience in our everyday movement of the body. This is the center of gravity of the body. And so for some of you, you can work a little more strongly with this if you want to. So we'll begin by placing the hands on the abdomen and just doing a very natural, same refined breath in, the same refined breath out, but just feeling right at the end of that exhale, there's just a little bit of scooping up and drawing in. The scooping up maybe felt coming up from the pelvic floor, maybe a sensation of the pelvic floor moving a little bit deeper into the body, a sense of the lower abdominal muscles just scooping up into the lower abdominal area as you exhale. This area is going soft as we breathe in and scooping up as we breathe out. We're in a chair exactly the same, inhaling and exhaling. And then for the progression, for those who want to work a little bit more strongly, if you're in a chair, what you're going to try to do is maintain a sense of lift in the pelvic floor as you carry on breathing. So you're making the abdominal area, the abdominal muscles soft on the inhale, but the pelvic floor carries on. So it's a more of a subtle scoop on the inhale and a more pronounced scooping in and up on the exhale. And if you're lying down, you can just move the blanket away from the head. And as you inhale, we're going to just let the hips come up into the air, and exhale, roll down. Same sensations in the body as you inhale, let the pelvis come up, let the leg muscles work. Exhale, a little bit of scooping as you roll the spine down. We're going to persist with this practice for a few more breaths. For those working on the mat, if you would like to increase the intensity of the physical experience, you could just maintain the pelvis in a lifted position and do the same breath work there. Just keeping a trace of softness on the inhale, because those muscles will be engaged around the abdomen to support you in the lifted position, and just exaggerating the scoop as you breathe out. When we become really aware of the core of the body, what in yoga theory is called the engagement of the bandhas, particularly Mula Bandha and the perineum, it brings about a sense of grounding, enhanced feelings of grounding and steadiness in the physical body, which ripples out into steadiness in other areas, steadiness in the breath and steadiness in the mind. Lovely, very good. So if you're still working, if you've got the hips raised off the mat in particular, release down, hug the knees in, rock from side to side, or fold forward over the thighs, take a little rock from side to side. You're just going to do one more practice from the mat, and then we'll come via a kneeling or standing cat and dog to our main posture tonight, which is a standing hip opening side bend. So the final pose we're going to do, either on the mat or on the chair, is a slightly different version of the twist that we normally do. So you're going to lie on your side and support the head with either a yoga block or quite a thick blanket. It's quite surprising how much blanket you need to feel that the head is in a neutral position. The palms reaching away, palms together, and we're going to breathe in. And as you take the arm up, you're going to let the head follow the hand. And as you exhale, you're going to move around into the twist. And then breathing in, bring that arm back up. And breathing out, bring the palms together. Carry on, do 3 or 4 on that side. Those in a chair can do a very similar thing, sitting sideways on the chair, breathing in, and then breathing out, following the palms, turning the head. Breathing in, coming back to center. And for those working in the chair, when you've done 3 of those, if you feel like you could take a little bit more twist, then twist the other way and just use the back of the chair very mindfully to draw the shoulders round. It's like a little counter pose, twisting the other way and twisting a little more strongly. And then when you're ready, you'll turn around and do the same practice 3 times, and then use the back of the chair on that side as well. If you're lying on the mat, you should round about now be rolling onto the other side. Exhaling into the twist. Inhaling, following the path of the hand, and exhale, palms together. Carry on until you feel that you have done a similar number of twists on each side. And when you've done that, again, if you're on the mat, come back to center, hug the knees in, rock from side to side, or take a moment to fold over the thighs if you are working from a chair. So we're going to do a cat and a dog. I'm going to go straight for the chair version because it's the one that more people tend to be doing, whether you're working in a chair or not. So this takes out all the weight bearing in the knees, which can be problematic, and all the weight bearing out of the shoulders and the wrists as well. So breathing in, not too much of the neck, just maybe just gazing towards the back of the chair, and breathing out, rounding the back. Breathing in, bend the knees. Breathing out, rounding the back. Trying to get as much feeling of undulation and freedom in the spine as we move in and out of this back bend and forward bend with our subtle, refined breath. So if you're doing that from all fours with the knees padded and the hands slightly in front of the shoulders, that's also fine. And remember, there's always the option of using the chair for wrist or shoulder issues, the seat of the chair. And then if you are using the back of the chair, it's a really easy transition into downward dog. So just scooting the hips back a little bit further, stretching the arms away, shoulder width apart, and then exhaling, keeping the knees bent and extending from the crown of the head right to the tailbone of the spine. Keeping that refined breath. You're not weight bearing in the legs. You'll be doing the chair version of the dog. Not holding it. Just one breath. And changing legs with each breath. Lovely. So let's say that we are coming out of the dog now, either walking the feet in towards the chair, coming up to standing, or if you've been working from the mat, then just take the head down for a moment into pose of the child. Take a breath or two there and then make your way up to standing. So this next one is a transition into our standing side bend and hip opener. If you're working in a chair, you'll be doing this movement with the arms from the chair, lifting the toes, sweeping the arms out and up, and exhaling, drawing the palms down, releasing the feet. Inhaling, lifting the heels as you raise the arms. Exhale, releasing the heels down. If you're able to do that from standing, very good practice for awakening the feet. Just a couple more. Toes up, toes released. Heels up and heels released. And then release the arms, give the legs a little shake. And then separate the feet a little bit and place the hands on the hips. And just try to feel that you are maintaining this length up through the center of the body. Just a little bit of that scooping action through the pelvic floor and the lower abdominals will stop you going too much into the lower back. So feeling that the tailbone is just lengthening away there. This is supported at the front, hands on the hips, and then just working the feet a little bit wider, making sure you're on a non-slip surface. I like to use the wooden floor, but a sticky yoga mat is great as well, until you begin to feel a stretch through the inner thighs. Working from a chair, you're just going to have a similar experience by walking the feet apart. Might need to just move towards the front of the chair, as long as that's safe for you to do so. And then when you feel that you're in a kind of maximum position where you're feeling the stretch, but you haven't gone so far that you're losing the feet, we're just going to soften the knees a little bit and slightly turn the toes out so that you can let the knees bend. And if you just have a quick look, the knees are tracking the feet. So if we didn't turn the feet out and tried to bend the knees, you'd have the toes pointing forwards and the knees pointing that way. So turning out. So this is a nice wide standing squat. So this is really helping to open the groins and prepare us for the pose we're going to do. So it can be quite uncomfortable to hold that for a long period. So we're going to breathe in and straighten the legs, and breathe out, release into the posture. You really don't need to come down very far. Feel at all wobbly, position yourself near a wall. And if you have been working in a chair and you've come out of the chair to do this work, then be extra careful. So for those in the chair, deepening, you can just move the upper body forwards rather than changing anything in the legs. So it'll be exhale coming forwards and inhale coming up. And then the next time you straighten the legs, turn the toes in, heel and toe, step the legs together, give the legs a little bit of a shake, and then separate the feet once more. Exactly the same if you're in the chair, but this time we're going to activate the legs a little bit more. Feel as if you are making both the front thigh muscles, the quads and the hamstrings at the back engage. Almost feel as if you're trying to pull the ground up to your hips through the soles of the feet, and at the same time slightly outwardly rotating the thighs, and that will mean that you're engaging some of the muscles around the back of the hips here, gluteus maximus in particular, and just gives you a feeling of opening and creating space in the front of the hips. Very nice. And then soften the legs, heel and toe, step the legs together, give the legs a little shake, and just check in with how you're feeling with that. We'll actually get to the posture now. So I'm going to really focus on this left leg for a moment, keep it nice and strong, the toes pointing forwards, everything is aligned, and then I'm going to let this right knee bend and turn the foot out. And as we've spoken about lots of times, you're not going to turn the foot out 90 degrees, you're just going to turn it out. So this lunged knee is both above or just this side of the ankle and is absolutely tracking the foot. And then can we keep the right side of this body long and either reach down with a hand or a forearm onto the thigh. What we don't want is to turn the upper body in, so keep drawing the upper body out. So this could be quite strong for some of you already. So if you're working here, that's absolutely fine. If you can work here, this is the deeper expression of this pose. This is Parashvakonasana. And then breathing in, straighten that leg, turn the right foot in, heel and toe, the feet together. You're going to go onto the left side. If you're standing, just carry on with the left side. If you are working in the chair, I'm sure you will have worked out what you were doing there. It's exactly the same. So keeping this foot facing forward, turning out the hip on the other side, leaning over, resting the forearm, and just enjoying that sense of hip opening and this lateral stretch in the body. So for those who are standing, you're either going to be here or here. Can you find that refined breath in this, what is by the usual standards of this class, quite a strong stretch. So really be kind to yourself and find the version that is going to work for you. And then breathing in, coming up, turn the foot in, heel and toe, step the legs together. So we're just going to take the form of that pose now, whichever form worked for you, and see if we can use that very subtle breath to refine it and soften it and bring a little bit of flow. So that will look like this. It'll be breathing in and breathing out, and breathing in and breathing out. So the higher arm, if you're going to the right, the left arm is going to do this circling motion, almost like the hand of a clock, indicating the two halves of the breath, 12 to 6, inhale, 6 to 12, exhale. So moving into that dynamic version. Try and feel that the shoulder is released. It's a syrupy movement. Try to feel like everything in the body that you're sensing is just being mediated and softened by your refined, soft, minimalist breath, which has a quality of completeness, but is not overworking. And then coming back up to center, turning the foot in, heeling toe together. And the last one on the other side. Find the form of the pose for you and begin. Maybe just one or two more until you feel that you've done an equal number on both sides. When you're ready to release out, coming mindfully out, heel and toe together. Coming back to mountain pose, just standing very still for a moment. Eyes downcast or closed. Notice what you feel in your body. Reflect on how well, during a little bit of practice where quite a lot was going on physically, how well you're able to maintain the transcendence and the dominance of the breath over the body. It's something we're always continually working towards. And so our last pose is a balance, a version of the tree, using a chair or not, and beginning with a really simple bending of the leg that isn't the standing leg. So I've got my right knee bent here, and then just inviting the knee to turn out and extending the arm away from the body, drawing up through the length of the midline. And if you don't need the chair or the wall, release the other arm. The arms start to tire, just soften the shoulders, bring the wrists down to head height. And then turn the palms and release. Give the shoulders a shrug, give the legs a shake. Used to doing...
Okay, for shake, I recommend breakfast super shake from BBC Good Food. 5 minutes.
Oh, the perils of an Alexa in the room. So if you want to do a slightly stronger version of tree, if you're used to putting the foot higher on the leg, feel free. But I'm really happy with this version for a static balance. It's already really quite challenging for lots of us. So with the support of a wall or a chair, if you need it or not, finding that subtle breath. And exhaling and releasing. And give the shoulders another shrug, give the arms and legs a shake. Take a moment to notice how you feel, very awakening for the feet and the legs. And through the work we did with the core, maybe the whole of the body is now feeling a little bit more connected and awakened through the practice. So we're coming into our supported inversion, our last pose before relaxation. As usual, supporting the head of the blanket. If you have a yoga block, placing that under the pelvis, resting the legs on the seat of the chair, and trying to feel that the arms are arranged equally either side of the body. The head is central, and the eyes either closed or a soft gaze up towards the ceiling. Notice the sensations in the body. Notice the sensations in the breath. And draw the breath gently and mindfully back into the lovely rhythm you found at the beginning of the class. Just sufficient breath, subtle, complete, not overly full, not overly labored, not involving too many breathing muscles, just a nice sense of flow in and flow out. Perhaps you may notice the heart rate beginning to slow down again, the rate of breathing slowing just a little bit more as the body moves from activity into stillness. And then in the next breath or two, coming into a relaxation position that will work for you. You could be lying on the floor, on your back, knees bent, lying on your side, in a chair if you need to be in a chair, making sure it's a supported chair, and if it's not particularly well supported, just using this relaxation more as a guided meditation. And take a moment to be really comfortable. Make sure you're going to be warm, perhaps a blanket, pair of socks, another layer. So that there's nothing to distract you, no sense of being uncomfortable, but feeling really still and cozy and warm and ready to relax. Continuing with your subtle flowing breath, take a moment to focus first on the body. Notice all the points of contact between your body and the floor or the chair. Feel supported by the ground beneath you. Notice all the sensations in the outer body, the arms, the legs, the skin, the superficial muscles of the body. Notice anything and everything in your physical body. And then go deeper. Notice any sensations deeper inside the physical body. Perhaps the feeling, the sensation of your heart beating, certainly of the breath moving in and out of the body. Perhaps a sense of food to be being digested or a meal to come in the abdomen. Deep into the core of the body, the center of the body, noticing every sensation in the center of the body, in the outside of the body. Noticing the sensations of the breath, reconnecting to the coolness of the breath in the nostrils, the feeling of the breath flowing past the back of the throat, down the windpipe into the lungs, flowing in and flowing out. 15 to 20,000 times a day, mostly unnoticed. But tonight, right now, noticed in microscopic detail, every sensation created by your breath. And then moving our focus to the mind, trying to step back from our own minds and notice the thoughts, the clarity, noticing particularly the space in the mind between the thoughts. Or maybe the mind is very busy and it's hard to find that space. It doesn't matter. Know that we always start with the steadiness and stillness of the body. We follow that with the steadiness and flow of the breath, knowing that these two things support the steadying of the mind. So whenever that sense of connection and oneness is absent in the mind, come back to the body, come back to the breath. But now for a few moments, try to bring a sense of stillness and connection between all three: body, breath, and mind. And simply be here now in this moment, and know that that moment of body, mind, and breath and its steadiness is complete. And then finally, just taking a moment to reflect on what connection means for you in this moment. Whether it is this very individual experience, or whether you feel a broader connection to things, places, people, the world around you, and whether you can relate this sense of inner connection to that sense of wider connection, maybe a connection that is far beyond you. Perhaps even infinite. And now allow your breath to deepen, let it drop back into its own natural rhythm. Move the fingers, wriggle the toes, stretch into your body in any way that feels good. And if you're lying on your back, bending the knees, rolling onto your side, and in your own time coming back up to sitting. Thank you very much for joining me for the class.